migration of the population towards Niš, a regional center, results in an ongoing growth in the size of the city. This migration brings new users who connect to the public water supply and results in a continual expansion of the city's water supply system. Modern lifestyles impose higher levels of water demand. Industrial development of Niš also adds to the daunting task bestowed upon the specialists of its water company. The city's public water supply system dates back to 1937. It was then that a source of groundwater called Mediana was developed. The skeleton of a water distribution system for the city was also built, as well as an elevated water storage reservoir in a Delijski vis. These projects allowed about 70 liters of water per second to be abstracted and distributed to residents. Subsequent growth of the city required an expansion of the water supply system. The city started to experience its first water shortages after World War II, and in 1963 the first regional system was commissioned. It was fed by a caustic spring called Studena. The Studena system is about 30 kilometers from the city center. It includes the Studena spring and a water main to the city reservoir of Delijski vis. The system also supplies consumers between these 2 points. An important characteristic of the system is that water is delivered to the city by means of gravity, so that no pumping is required. This particular system is the first regional system of the Niš water supply system. It is known by its acronym NIVAS. There were deliberations at the time whether to abandon the Mediana water source, presuming that the yield of the Studena water source would permanently meet the demand of the city. This presumption was soon proven wrong. The city grew very rapidly, and by 1973, Mediana and Studena were no longer able to meet the demand for water. Design projects were initiated in an attempt to upgrade the Mediana water source. These projects resulted in the conversion of Mediana into an infiltration water source. Following the completion of the Phase 1 of the project in 1973 and Phase 2 in 1977, the water source was upgraded from the original yield of 70 liters of water per second to 5 times as much. Extensive research was undertaken from 1977 to 1983, aimed at finding additional water sources for Niš. It was concluded that the best solution would be the building of a large regional water system. This system was later named Ljuberađa Niš. It was designed to provide a minimum yield of 800 liters of water per second. Construction began in 1981 and the system was completed in 1987. Today, the water supply system of Niš has a minimum available capacity between 1300 and 1700 liters per second. It is an intricate system comprised of a network of pipelines of different diameters, whose overall length is about 1100 kilometers. It includes a large number of structures tailored to the elevations at which the various users reside, and today we have 14 pumping stations and 56 different water storage structures from Babušnica or from Ljuberađa to Niš via Bela Palanka and the Sićevo Gorge. In addition to meeting regular demand, the current yield available to the water supply system is able to cope with extensive losses due to leakage. These losses are generally unwarranted, and we have recently instituted an extensive campaign to eliminate them and to bring the entire distribution system under tight control. This should ensure a technically reasonable level and intensity of losses and maintain an adequate water supply capacity for a relatively long time to come.
Imamo na raspolaganju dovoljne kapacitete za sve situacije u vezi sa vodosnabdevanjem. Posljednju godinu dana je u
In this regard, a project was initiated recently involving the pumping of water from the Krupac spring. This system will enable us to use the Krupac water source when it is most needed. With regard to future prospects, any increase in capacity should definitely be synchronized with the needs of the city. The demand is currently at the standstill since the city has stopped growing at the same rapid pace as in the previous years, and we believe that the demand will not be as high as before, but new sources will have to be provided in any event. It is well known that mountain spring water originating from an uncontaminated drainage area provides water of the highest quality. The Ljuberađa-Krupac system is comprised of the tapped springs of Ljuberađa, Divljana, Mokra and Krupac. The water from these springs is transported to the Vinik reservoir in Niš, either by means of gravity or a series of pumping stations. A true gem among these is the caustic spring of Krupac, named Blue Eye, a long time ago by Jovan Cvijić. The water from this spring is clean and translucent and can be consumed even today, posing no health hazards. Water is available at the spring throughout the year, and even the oldest living natives in the area do not remember it ever having dried out. Back in the old times, the Krupac spring was a meeting place. According to the legend, merchants used the route through these mountains to travel to Istanbul. During the time of the Ottoman Empire, the area of the spring was teeming with life. I was not born here, but I got married here. My wife is from the village and I have lived here for 54 years. I remember the spring being very large and the local residents using the water. They had a water mill, they used it to wash, water cattle. In other words, they used it for all their needs when there was no public water supply. Numerous sinkholes and swallow holes along the Svrljig mountains remind us that water also accumulates on the mountain surfaces. Some of these are mentioned in various legends, which the residents of the surrounding villages continue to recount. I heard of this legend, and the legend is told throughout the municipality of Bela Palanka, especially on this side of the Svrljig mountains, that some guy had taken his sheep to pasture and that up the mountain near Gornji Rinj, where there was a deep vertical hole, he accidentally dropped his fiddle, and the fiddle traveled underground and reached the spring. And when the man who was operating the mill saw that it was his son's fiddle and he was grazing sheep that belonged to a Turk, he made a deal with his son to drop a lamb down the hole, and like the miller would wait for the lamb, and he passed several lambs to the spring until the Turk noticed. Later, the legend says, the Turk punished him, but in which way and whether and how he killed him, I don't know. The old mill, where people used water from the spring to grind wheat, still exists, but only as a museum and a reminder of the past. A new mill was built nearby, so that the residents of Krupac would not be affected by the spring being put to other uses. Until the year of 1982, the waters flowed unused into the Nishava River via the Krupac River. When the water source was developed and the pertinent water abstraction facilities built, the spring became a part of the Ljuberađa water system. Most karstic springs are characterized by extreme yield fluctuations during the year, and many of them dry out during the summer and autumn months. 15 years of water abstraction from the Krupac spring have confirmed that non-uniformity of its yield and a disparity between its yield and user demand. The non-uniform discharge is dependent on the intensity of the atmospheric precipitation over time, the size and characteristics of the drainage area, and the type of rock and its storage capacity above the discharge elevation. Discharges registered at the Krupac spring generally vary from 100 to 3,000 liters per second. Extreme discharges on record are as low as 35 liters per second and as high as 11,000 liters per second. Mountain spring water is the highest quality drinking water, and this is why it is used in the water supply system of Niš. However, as the city grows, so does its water demand. This is especially true during the summer months, in August, and even later in early fall, September and October. There are water shortages, particularly during dry years, and it is then that water quantities have to be increased. We have come up with a plan, working with the people from the Niš Water Company, to make use of the subsurface storage within the mountains and to pump water directly from the mountain. The Krupac spring was formed at the interface between impervious rock, comprised of flysch, and pervious rock, limestone, which generally make up the mountain from which the spring discharges water. Earthquakes have fractured the limestone, and water pathways have inside channels. The spring was formed from large karstic channels to the point of discharge where the water rises from the mountain. The basic idea was to go deep under the mountain and abstract deep waters by means of wells, that is, from depths which are well below the discharge elevation, and to make use of as many underground water storage cavities as are available in the mountain. This was accomplished by having divers go deep into the mountain, and of course these people were well prepared to explore the status of the fractures in the mountain at depth of 100 meters. It was a very dangerous undertaking. The position of the fractures was surveyed from the top of the mountain, and we were able to establish communication and to bore wells which are being used to abstract the water. This method should provide additional water for the city of Niš and ensure unrestricted use of water during the summer months. The current project has an additional dimension, and that is to define mechanisms for the use of subsurface water storages in limestones throughout eastern Serbia. The task facing specialists from the Jaroslav Černi Institute for the Development of Water Resources from Belgrade, who are in charge of the project, required exceptional knowledge and tenacity. Following detailed analysis, they selected pumping as the best method. The project was comprised of two phases. Phase 1 of the project included research, which lasted relatively long. Construction took a year and cost more. I should say that the research included conventional hydrogeological activities aimed at determining the features of the rock masses. It's interesting to mention certain non-standard activities conducted here, particularly those involving our professional divers who collaborated with French divers. They went inside the spring several dozen times. The spring itself can be defined as follows. At a depth of about 60 meters below the spring discharge elevation, there is a widening, a cavern, or figuratively speaking, a belly, which was very important to the subsequent activities on the project. The divers went even deeper than this point, and the inside of the mountain was perfectly defined. After the diving activity, and in order to gain accurate insight into the potential of the spring itself, a pumping test was conducted at the spring. Pumps were installed at 25 meters and 29 meters, and water was pumped during several typical months. During this time, the drawdown was from 100 meters to 125 meters, and the additional quantity of water provided for Niš was about 100 liters per second. Since only the geometry of the mountain was defined, the next delicate undertaking was to select the location of the well to reach the belly at 60 meters. Several surveys were made and sound match was obtained. We feel it was quite a success that 3 exploratory boreholes hit their targets at the first attempt, in view of the large depth of the cavern. The success is even greater due to the fact that the boring site was about 30 meters higher than the spring, making the well actually 90 meters deep. After site selection and successful boring, it was time to think about the main construction activity to be undertaken. An international tender procedure was embarked on and was successful. The cost of the entire construction project will be about 800,000 euros. Since a minimum of 200 liters per second of additional water will be provided, this means that the cost is about 4,000 euros per liter per second, which is very low and is the best solution for the city of Niš, particularly considering the excellent water quality of the Krupac spring. Well boring was done by Gradežni Institute from Skopje. A side cave was encountered while boring the second well, but the problem was successfully surmounted with a state-of-the-art equipment. Subsequent filming through the well revealed rare subsurface shapes and forms, which resemble science fiction movies. Extraction of the water from the Krupac spring will provide the precious additional water for the city of Niš during the summer and autumn months. The pumping concept of the Krupac spring has been published and accepted with interest in international professional circles, since it will ensure additional water supply for a regional economic center at the time of its greatest need.